Have you ever felt like nobody tells the truth about women anymore? That every conversation is either blind devotion or bitter resentment, never transparency, never sincerity? Society romanticizes women as pure, compassionate, and morally superior, but what if this perception is a carefully created illusion? And what if one of history's most controversial philosophers saw through it over 100 years ago? Friedrich Nietzsche was not scared to speak what others wouldn't say. He had nothing against women, but he did not romanticize them either. While other philosophers of the time either dismissed or idolized women, Nietzsche went further. He asked, what lies beneath the surface? Not what men want women to be, but what they truly are beneath the societal masks, beneath the core principles, beneath the roles they've been given. He spotted something uncomfortable, something few dare speak about even today. Not because it's disgusting, but because it is the truth. Nietzsche believed that the connection between men and women was not founded on equality or love in the romanticized sense but on inclination, power, and survival. And the more you look around nowadays, the more his vision looks incredibly accurate. This is not something about blame. It's not about celebrating men or condemning women. It's about addressing a deeper reality, which reveals the unseen dynamics behind gender, attraction, and control. Nietzsche didn't give answers wrapped in pleasure, he gave something better, an opportunity to see clearly. So if you're tired of the lies, if you'd like to see past the romantic illusions and face the brutal, unapologetic reality, then stay with me. Because the moment you understand how Nietzsche perceived women, you may never look at love, power, or personality the same way again. Now, let us get started. Nietzsche believed that men do not sincerely love women. They love an idea of women, a projection, a well-created illusion that makes them feel protected, inspired, and even superior. He termed this romantic idealization a dangerous lie, one that claims women are naturally pure, innocent, sensitive, and morally superior. But for Nietzsche, this wasn't recognition, it was a kind of self-deception. To him, the perfect woman was not a representation of truth but a myth created by men who couldn't cope with the natural, complex character of the female spirit. Rather than dealing with that complexity, men reduced women to representations of virtue, of beauty, of emotional restoration. And in doing so, they deprived women of their self-reliance and transformed them into characters in their own drama. Nietzsche considered this not just dishonest but cowardly. He claimed that men lie to themselves since they cannot take the entire truth of what women are, intuitive, strategic, and fueled by their own kind of power. Not better or worse than men, but unique. Enigmatic, not because they're incomprehensible, but because men prefer not to understand them. They would rather protect their fantasy than face the truth. This mask of romanticism, Nietzsche believed, was not a symbol of love but of fear, fear of emotional self-reliance, fear of sexual independence, and fear of a woman who doesn't need to be rescued. Therefore, men wrap their fear up as affection, call it romance, and fool even themselves. But when truth breaks through, when the ideal fractures and the real woman shows up, men usually feel betrayed. Not because she changed, but because the illusion they generated couldn't hold. And Nietzsche, always dedicated to reality over comfort, considered this as one of society's most terrible lies, that to love women, men have to first blind themselves to who women truly are. Nietzsche never considered women as weak. He considered them as experts of a different form of strength, one that doesn't scream but whispers. Men usually show their power in clear ways through power, domination, or aggression. Nietzsche believed that women had created a more sophisticated form of control, not less strong, but less visible. He considered this as a type of evolutionary wisdom. For the majority of history, women had no access to official power. They could not rule nations or lead troops, therefore, they adapted. They acquired skills on how to manipulate from the shadows, through charm, through seduction, and through emotional accuracy. And although men ruled their kingdoms with swords and speeches, women influenced the men who built those kingdoms. Nietzsche saw how women could lead decisions without giving instructions, earn loyalty without using force, and secure security without asking. Their power was relational, emotional, and founded on profound insight into human nature. They knew what drove men: desire, self-worth, pride, and they mastered how to manipulate those forces without turmoil, not out of animosity but survival. He admired this, but he also warned against overlooking it, since while such power is difficult to understand, it's also difficult to resist. Nietzsche believed that women possessed an instinct for strategy, a method of having people act without knowing they were being led. And in this way, he considered them not as victims of history but as discrete tacticians within it. This was not flattery, it was a challenge to the fundamental concepts of his time. Society describes women as humble and dependent. Nietzsche considered them calculating, perceptive, and fiercely conscious of their influence. He wasn't condemning them for this, he was just stating what few dared speak out loud, that in the world of human relationships, the most powerful person is usually the person who never has to raise their voice. Nietzsche believed that human beings are not led by truth, they are influenced by appearance. And in women, he saw this natural inclination evolve to an art form, not out of being superficial but out of necessity. In a society where direct power was denied to them, Nietzsche believed women acquired the ability to live through illusion, performance, and the deliberate shaping of perception. He didn't criticize women for being fake. In reality, he respected their capacity to navigate a harsh world by conquering the surface. While men frequently mistake appearance for truth, Nietzsche argued that women recognize the distinction instinctively. They understand the mask is not the face, but they also know the mask means more. To Nietzsche, how women position themselves is not vanity, it is technique. Their natural beauty, their elegance, and their social skills, they are not ornaments, but they are weapons. In a setting that lowers their value to how they are perceived, women learn fast that control over perception is control over the consequence. And although many disregarded this as mere femininity, Nietzsche saw it as great psychological knowledge. Women, he claimed, have an innate awareness of the symbolic. They know that people don't fall in love with truth, they fall in love with what they wish reality to be. And by shaping how they are regarded, women don't just react to the context, they shape it. This is why Nietzsche believed the topic of truth is never easy when it comes to social interaction, since in a context where perception is power, the will to appear becomes just as essential, if not more, than the will to be. Women, over centuries of exclusion, polished this into an ability that few realize for what it really is, a quiet, constant mastery of the surface that controls everything beneath it. Nietzsche did not regard love as a harmonious union. He regarded it as a battleground, two opposing inclinations clashing behind the illusion of romance. Men and women, in his perspective, were not naturally matched but intrinsically in tension. They desired each other, definitely, but for very different reasons. And this difference caused conflict concealed as a connection. He believed that men loved from a vantage point of idealism. They put their hopes on women, expecting salvation, elegance, and emotional stability. Women, on the contrary, loved with greater intuition. For them, love was less about imagination and more about preservation, about finding resilience, security, and advantages in a world that did not give them much else. These were not deliberate techniques, Nietzsche claimed, but instinctive ones, influenced by nature, society, and a desire for power. What bothered him most was the deception of it all. Society wrapped up this battle in poetry and flowers, calling it love. But beneath that gentleness, Nietzsche observed calculation. He observed two forces manipulating each other, influencing each other, and trying to control each other under a pretense of unity. In this way, love was not the end of dispute, rather, it was its most attractive form. Nietzsche didn't blame women for this, nor did he blame men. He blamed the illusion that love was innocent, equal, or free from oppression. He believed that every relationship was, at its root, a negotiation of power, one that many individuals never recognized. And since they didn't see it, they suffered under it. For Nietzsche, genuine understanding only starts when we stop pretending the battle isn't real, when we stop expecting peace and start acknowledging the basic and often dark forces that define human desire. Love, in his perspective, was not a surrender, it was a strategy. And like every other strategy, it came with hidden costs.